Right. So, I'm Matthew Jessop. I am a landscape architect. I'm the head of the UK Landscape and Urban Design team at WSP. So we've had a lot of really interesting presentations already, some really great initiatives and more projects to come, so I feel I'm sort of in a bit of an interzone. So I'm really interested to know what we can learn from these and other projects. So I'm going to take this as a kind of an overview, because I think we've seen that there are some common themes, and I'm glad that actually some of the themes that have come up already are things that I was going to bring to the table as well. And I'm going to explore these by reference to some project examples. I'm going to go a bit more geographically diverse, but also thinking about how this is actually about resilience and health. So health in terms of societal health, individual health, environmental health, not just about managing water. But first, I think let's take a look at what does Sponge City, that's the first slide. What is the Sponge City idea? What's it about? I mean, it seems obvious, but I thought it would be worth just exploring that. So it's a really perfect idiom. It really sort of does what it says on the tin. Making space for water, permeability, working with nature and natural systems. But there's lots of terminology in this space that we use, GI, GBI, water-sensitive urban design, nature-based solutions, rain gardens, green roofs, and it's easy to use these interchangeably, but they sort of differ. Some are planning tools, design principles, design guidance, design elements that we actually put in the ground. But for me, the thing about Sponge City is that the difference is in scale and significance. It's a really powerful idea to be adopted at a city scale, but also adaptable at a national scale. If we look at the catastrophic events in Beijing, Copenhagen, and in New York, Storm Sandy, we can see that these led to very immediate responses. So in Beijing, that led to the rolling out of the Sponge City program, the Copenhagen Cloudburst program rolled out, and in New Jersey, there was the Resilient New Jersey program. So for me, what this points to is that these events were catalysts that led to action at pace, supported by a clear policy framework that recognised that we needed to do, or that things needed to be done differently in order to make change happen. And so this, for me, is one of the cruxes of Sponge Cities. So just in terms of a bit of context, why does this matter? So we're aware of the global trends, intensifying climate impacts, too much or not enough water, compounded by rising temperatures, habitat and biodiversity loss, which the Dasgupta report has clearly pointed to us underpins the whole of society, either indirectly or if not directly. But then also social challenges in the urban environment. So we've got inequitable access to green space, the effects of flooding on those communities, and social justice issues as well. Beyond this, we've got the ongoing post-COVID impacts to navigate. And all of this adds up to making the case for the adoption of green infrastructure as a core resilience and health intervention very valid. So we're familiar with the co-benefits, the social and environmental benefits, of which managing stormwater is one. But there are also structural, financial and cultural barriers that are limiting uptake of GI. So we have fragmented responsibilities, different legislation, competing priorities and resources, misconceptions around the value and function of green infrastructure, funding constraints, long-term maintenance responsibilities and inconsistent skills and stewardship. Public grants and philanthropy are unable to meet the scaling ambitions that we've heard mention of earlier. And also there's a lack of clarity around the design life and specification standards for MBS assets. But the situation is getting worse, not better, and action for impact is needed urgently. So we all work in this space or have responsibilities in this space. So how can we accelerate change? So, pulled out a few guiding principles that focus on new value frameworks. So this is how we think about things outside of profit and economic gain. And collaborative models to capitalise on resilience and health. I'm going to keep saying it because it's about resilience and health. Benefits to overcome barriers and support delivery. And this is more than just about flooding. So this involves thinking for the long term. We need systems and processes that are adaptable and enable swift decision making to achieve the greatest benefit. And this requires strong leadership, because there's always a reason not to do something. The Auckland Blue-Green Network programme was a swift response and a delivery at pace following the 2023 floods. So there was an accelerated programme of fast-tracking resilience that included voluntary high-risk property buyouts to facilitate the network. So that was quite an innovative approach, but the network approach itself covers the things that you would expect, but it was the pace at which that was put in place that's important here, the swift response. In terms of prioritisation, the Karensminde project is a Copenhagen cloudburst project, which prioritised an area of the city that was most vulnerable to flooding, had high deprivation and the lowest access to nature. So the impact that this project had on that local community was significant. The Harrestrup River Capacity Plan is another Danish project, another part of the Copenhagen cloudburst. This area is to the sort of west and north of Copenhagen, but it impacts on Copenhagen, which was why there was a bold decision to go beyond Copenhagen and engage with 10 municipalities and work at a catchment scale. So this involved a three-tier partnership of local governments, the utilities, and central government. And the point here was that it was about finding the mechanism for the utilities and the councils to co-fund the solutions, which involved legal changes around what changes to the tax system, but also on what utilities companies could actually fund as part of their what they were allowed to do. So these initiatives were put in place. So this highlights how sometimes you need systemic change acting in the national interest, identifying clear responsibilities and accountability, which then relate to the complementary strengths of the partners involved in that partnership. I think it's worth reflecting on how things could be different if the Schedule 3 had been successfully adopted. We might be in quite a different place now. At the other end of the scale, this is the Marylebone Low Emission Neighbourhood in Westminster. This is an example of a small-scale project that we're all familiar with. It's a series of rain gardens. It started off as it's a low-emission neighbourhood project, so there was no sense of anything to do with managing stormwater. When we looked at the surface water maps, we found that it was actually, part of it was in a flood risk area. So we discussed this with the client and we decided that each of these planters would actually then become rain gardens instead. So that small shift of direction actually created significant amounts of value to this project, rather than just being about providing space for cyclists and reducing the effects of vehicle emissions. We actually increased the functionality of the green infrastructure in this space. But after the project, what became clear was that there were challenges around maintenance, skills and funding related to the contractors who were involved. And this is why it's really important that we bring stakeholders and communities along with us on the journey. Herne Hill is was a large project in South London across 3 sites. 2 of them were Grade 2 listed parks and gardens. And there were many brilliant things about this project, but key among them was the partnership working and the early stakeholder engagement, which took on for about 2 years before we started construction. And this early engagement and trust building gave the community agency in the project, which led to a real watershed moment after about a year in, when the community recognised that actually this was an opportunity for the project, not a threat to their park. So the dialogue from that point onwards was very different. So this was a really positive outcome, but how do we scale that up? So this, I think, is something that's been mentioned peripherally. We've skated around this, but I thought it would be useful to talk about this. So we have 165,000 holes dug in the road each year as part of the street works. The intention of this is to combine the reinstatement of those works with SUDs. The aim is to deliver 17,000 per annum. So this is about process and confidence. So a tool has been developed to calculate the surface water volume. The team has identified statutory constraints and pathways to overcome blockers in the process. And they've developed 5 SUDS typologies with standardised maintenance schedules and costings to give confidence among adopters. So this is using a market-based approach. So this is based on supply and demand. The utility companies, the local authorities and TfL have the need, are able to supply the space, and the local authorities, Highways Agency, are providing the demand. So this is So through more efficient delivery of funds and sort of loss avoidance, which is the point of the trading process, bundling budgets, we can look to see how NBS can be delivered at scale. So this is a step in the right direction. Right, I've gone over, so I'm going to just skip to this slide now. Okay, so this is another example of how we can convert underused grey streets into multifunctional green spaces and community assets, delivering, and it's not a new idea, but it's about how do we deliver it. And the difference is using, delivering through measurable benefits around surface water storage, reduced surface temperatures, increased biodiversity, those sorts of things. The point about this project is the scale of the opportunity. Over 250 potential pocket park sites have been identified across the borough. So I wanted to just touch on what some of the barriers are to scaling up, because this is the nub. I mean, this is a point that's come up several times this afternoon already. So I think the main barrier isn't really lack of policy per se, but it's that the value case for SUDS isn't consistently embedded in decisions. And this shows up as a focus on short-term capital costs, overshadowing the longer-term multiple benefits values that SUDS provide. So there's this cost myth that capital maintenance is more expensive, but actually research has shown that it's actually cheaper. But it needs investment in skills and education, because these things need to be looked after, which is the maintenance aspect that we've talked about. So there's a legacy here for communities in terms of positive streetscapes and the stewardship model. Just wanted to mention the Flood Action Coalition and the Air Resilience Company. So these are blended finance associations which are looking to scale up nature-based solutions by using this loss avoidance approach. So insurance companies looking for solutions to overcome the losses through flooding through investing in resilience, and scaling this to build a nature market. So this is all really promising. So I just wanted to finish here. So to sum up, in my opinion, the most valuable property of a sponge city is really the principle of that focused action to increase results at pace. So there are three things to take away. We need to accelerate delivery through strong leadership, systemic change, and an outcome-focused approach. We need to maximise impact, so prioritising the most at risk and stacking co-benefits to maximise the return on the investments, environmental and social. And to scale up, we need data collection, reliable, quantifiable benefit metrics to attract investment and drive delivery forward. Thank you.